Hello friends, myself Dr. Sharmila Ghangale, Assistant Professor, Department of Biotechnology, Changu, Kana, Thakur, Arts, Commerce and Science College, Empowered Autonomous, New Panvel. Dear students, today we are going to discuss the topic from the drug discovery, and today's topic of discussion is sources of drugs. Student, before proceeding to the sources of drug, one must understand the meaning of drugs as such. So, to understand the meaning of drugs, let us proceed with the slide. Before that, I would like to give the abstract or the summary of today's talk. As everybody knows that drugs are the substances or the products that are used or intended to be used to modify or explore the physiological system. Basically, student, whenever the certain physiological conditions or any system has been disturbed, it will show up in the body with the certain pathological states or symptoms. So in order to cure that symptoms or for the benefit of the recipient, we need to discuss about the drugs. Drug is the only logical that these drugs might arises from the several sources. Nowadays, there are lot many of the drugs which are available in the market. Many of the pharmaceuticals, they are involved in the invention as well as manufacturing of the different drugs which can cure the certain vital diseases. The sources of the drug have traveled through a complete era and complete arc as well, being derived mainly from the natural sources. And from the ancient centuries, everybody knows that the drugs are actually extracted or synthesized from the natural sources. Basically, when these natural sources has come up with the Ayurveda, homeopathy, along with that, there are certain innovation of synthetic and semi-synthetic drugs as well. So there is also a gray area in between that constitutes the semi-synthetic sources, while the natural alkaloids, glycosides are still used today. And synthetically manufactured drugs are having equal importance, significantly associated with the quality, purity, as well as the low cost. So in the today's discussion, students, we are going to discuss about these sources of drugs. Let us see that what are the drugs. Drugs, as you all know, a drug is an active chemical entity that is present in a prescribed medicine, which is used for diagnosis, prevention, treatment, or cure of the disease. However, this definition primarily excludes the contraceptives and drug which is used for the improvement of health, like you can say that nutraceuticals or nutrient supplements, etc. They are not at all actually categorized under the drugs. So drugs are those which is used primarily for the diagnosis, prevention and the treatment or cure of the certain diseases. So drug is also called as a active chemical entity, students, which is present in a prescribed medicine. It is used for diagnosis, prevention and treatment. So these three words are equally important whenever you are going to define the drug as such. So this definition excludes contraceptives and the nutrients as well. The meaning of drug or drug is the word, it is primarily derived from a French word drogue. This drogue meaning dried herbs, and here you can get an actual implementation of herbs primarily extracted from the plants. And that's why here we can say that the prime source of or the natural source of drug is primarily from the plants. So in 1966, WHO defined drug as any substance or product that is used or intended to be used to modify or explore the physiological system, pathological state for the benefit of the recipient. And that is the reason why whenever any symptoms you need to cure, it will be cure with respect to the particular drugs. So certain drugs which has been prescribed by the doctor, it is according to the symptoms. So as and when we need to cure that particular disease, we need to take the drugs. So whenever we are going to get the nomenclature of the drug, this nomenclature of the drug has the three different names. The drugs could be named or identified by the chemical name. They could be identified by the non-proprietary or generic name, or also they can be identified with the help of proprietary or brand names. So first let us see one by one. First of all, let us understand about the chemical name. Chemical name depicts the drug's chemical nature. However, it is very cumbersome basically to remember the huge and a very big chemical name, hence it is always practically not possible. So whenever it is been prescribed, we cannot prescribe the chemical name of the drug as such. For example, I have given the example in the screen that RS242 methyl propyl phenyl propionic acid is the chemical name of ibuprofen and the common NSAID. So as an evidence for this example, we can say that the chemical name 242 methyl propyl phenyl propionic acid is too cumbersome to remember, but ibuprofen is comparatively easy and we can able to identify it in a way. So that's the reason why chemical name are actually identifies the drug, but whenever with this chemical name we are going to suggest the particular drug, it is difficult to understand them as well as to identify them immediately. So next will come up, that is non-proprietary or generic name. Non-proprietary or generic name is the one that is having the certain authority, and that authority has accepted by a scientific body. So scientific body may be country specific, student, or maybe it is the different countries might have been given the different names for the same drugs. It may be happen, but it should be authorized or signed by the WHO. WHO, everybody knows that it is a World Health Organization. So to avoid ambiguity, all the members of the nations of WHO sign an agreement to use a single recommended international or non-proprietary name for the each drug. Then student come up, it is a proprietary or brand name. Proprietary or brand name is the name which is owned or designated by the manufacturer. Nowadays everybody knows that there are many manufacturing companies, pharmaceutical or biopharmaceutical companies, who are own or manufacture that particular drug. They have designed the drug by means of the many tools. So for example, ibuprofen is also one of the proprietary name which has been branded under the various brands like Brufen, Combiflame, Unafen, Advil, etc. So these names are basically owned or designated by the manufacturer. So these are called as the proprietary or brand name. So under these all categories, we can understand that how the drug name has been categorized. Now after this, though the different names of there for the many drugs, but still the source is same. So right now today we are going to discuss about the different sources and how this source has been designed for the betterment or the understanding of the student. So whenever we need to understand the sources of drug, we need to know that how this drugs has been named according to their proprietary brand name or generic name. So drug have been in use at least early as 2700 BC in Asia and the Middle East regions as well. So until the advent of 20th century, every drug was derived from the natural sources. So here it is the main concern to tell you about the uh, generic name, chemical name and the brand name. So brand name or chemical name, it is started from the very earliest. So that's why whenever the drugs has been derived from the natural sources, it will be of plants first took up as a major share, because our ancient people, or from the ancient era, we are actually using the extracted plant herbs as a sources of drug. So with the introduction of technology, many of the drugs today has been manufactured synthetically also in the laboratory. So that's why there is a come up of synthetic and semi-synthetic drugs in the lab or the pharmaceuticals. So now this is the major sources of drug, students, which can be grouped up into the following ways. So these are the major categories how the drugs can be sources out from the different ways or from the different sources. The first and very important source of drugs is natural source, student. So from the natural source, we can take up plants as a drug source, animals as a drug source, and microbiota, or I would also say that microorganisms as a drug source. Then again with the come up with the technology, the semi-synthetic sources and synthetic sources which are come up, which gives a high quality, high yield and the purity of the drugs. And that's the reason why nowadays biopharmaceutical and different pharmaceutical, they are focusing on the synthetic sources of the drugs as well. Now let us see one by one what are the natural sources. Natural sources under plant shares the major part, because among the natural sources, plants contribute to the vast majority of the drugs. As you all know, extract from the plants may be either is used for without further processing, crude drugs, or with the technical processing, prepared drugs that can be prepared with the help of plants. Although the earliest plant source for drugs, it was leaf, other part of the plants, they were also later exploited for the drug extraction. So nowadays, whenever we are thinking about the drug extraction from plant, it may be from the flower, or maybe from the leaves, or the stems, or the roots. We can take any part of the plant which is actually used as a sources of drugs. So if you can see that in the picture, there is a certain capsules which has been made, and these capsules are basically are the drugs, man-made drugs, but their sources may be come up with the plants. So the first category under the plant source is alkaloids. What are alkaloids? The word alkaloids itself indicate that, meaning alkali like. So alkaloids are complex, organic, bitter tasting, alkaline and nitrogen containing compounds, mostly obtained from the plants. They are maybe obtained from the animal sources as well. So these are readily soluble in alcohol but sparingly in water. However, the salts are the water soluble. Example of the alkaloid, students, you might have been known with the morphine and caffeine. The second category is come up is glycosides. Glycosides are non-nitrogenous colorless crystalline solids. They are comprised of a sugar component, means glucose, and non-sugar compound, that is a glycone. So the name glycoside itself indicate that it some of containing a sugar component. So the non-sugar part of this is responsible for the pharmacological activity, is that part which is responsible for pharmacological activity, and the sugar component is responsible for the pharmacokinetic properties. So in the pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic properties, we can understand what is the pharmacological principle of the drugs. So classical example of glycosides are digoxin and digitoxin. They are also called as cardiac glycosides. Salicylic acid as well is the important glycosides the everybody knows. Then come up, students, saponins. Saponins are non-nitrogenous compounds. They are mostly glycosylated steroids, and they are characteristic quality of forthing. So on hydrolysis, they get split up into the sugar and a glycon. So snigine and glycyrrhizin are the important saponins which are extracted from the plants. Again come up oils. Oils basically comes under the fats category or fatty acids. So oils are the liquids that are insoluble in water. There are three major types of oils. First is essential oil, concentrated hydrophobic oils containing aromatic volatile compounds which do not leave the stains on evaporation, like clove oils, eucalyptus oils, peppermint oil, etc. There are also some of the essential oils which are subdivided into hydrocarbons and oxygenated compounds. So these are the oils. Oils primarily also used for the external applications for inflammation or the any other use. Fixed oils are there. Fixed oils are basically the esters of higher fatty acid like palmitic acid, oleic acid, stearic acid, etc. And the another class which has come under the oil is a non-volatile, which leaves a permanent stain on the evaporation, like castor oil, olive oil, etc. Mineral oils are also there, students, which are colorless, odorless, and light mixture of higher alkanes. So in that, the liquid paraffin, hard paraffin, and soft paraffin will be included. Another important class of the natural sources of plant drug is waxes, gums, and mucilage, which is actually extracted from the plants. Waxes are the esters of higher fatty acids and higher monohydric alcohols as well. They are high melting point, they have the high melting point like bee wax. Gums and mucilage are the complex amorphous colloidal secretory hydrocarbons, polysaccharides of plant origin, and they can dissolve in the water. So this is something the physical properties of this plant extracts or the drugs which we can prepare from the wax, gums, and mucilages. For example, agar, acacia, and thycilium is the seeds are the gums, while the terracanth is a mucilage. So these are the different plant parts, or we can say that extracted from the plants, which can be able to apply for the preparation of drugs. Resin, tannins and toxins are also shares their major part as a sources of drug. Resins are the amorphous, bitter, water insoluble polymers of the volatile oils like benzoin, shellac, etc. Tannins are non-nitrogenous, students, which are bitter in water soluble or phenolic derivatives. Toxins are simply defined as poisons. So poisons may be a plant origin or may be animal origin as well, and might have been having a different therapeutic effects. Now moving further, as an animal as a drug source, when we are considering, then we can define as the drugs originated from the animal sources are called as animal drug sources. So they are lesser in number actually, but still the few vital examples which are included in the animal sources, they may be I have described in the presentation. The first is a vole animal. Uridine and heparin are obtained from the European medical leech and the Mexican medical leech as well. So this can be directly used as a drug source. Other organs of animals could be used as cod liver oil, you can say that, or Gaddes species, insulin from the bovine, or porcine pancreas, vitamin B12 extraction from the liver, or the various antitoxic sera that could also be used as a certain animal drug sources. Glandular production or extracts, vaccines, sera, antitoxins, antidotes, and HCG, that is human chorionic gonadotropin, which is acting as an hormone, that is also mainly extracted from the animal source. So animal source, though it is a little bit, but still they can have the more importance in the field of drug discovery. So another important share taken by the microorganism. So microbiota as a drug sources in the several life, they saving the drugs which have been historically derived from the microorganism. So minerals as a drug sources, minerals have also been used as a drug since ancient times. So both metallic and non-metallic minerals are commonly used as a drug. So microorganisms are also play an important role for the preparation of drugs as well. Now next come up, students, semi-synthetic sources. Now semi-synthetic means it is not purely natural and not purely synthetic. So in between that you can have the semi-synthetic sources. When the nucleus of the drugs obtained from the natural sources that is kept intact and it is altering chemical structure, then the resultant products are semi-synthetic drugs like hematropine from the atropine, and heroin from the morphine, then bromoskopalin, then penicillin, ampicillin. They are all evident example of the semi-synthetic drugs. Some of way you can say that there are certain compounds, chemical compounds are included along with the natural sources. So these are the synthetic drug are basically called as extension of plants or animal sources. Then come up lastly, student, synthetic sources. Unlike semi-synthetic drugs, synthetic drugs are those which are having both nucleus and chemical structure. So that chemical structure may be altered or modified, but still they contain both nucleus of the actual living source and the chemical structure of the other chemical compounds. So these are exclusively prepared in the laboratory. One of the earliest synthetic drug was sulfonamide, which began the synthesis of pentosyl dye. So a vast majority of the modern day drugs are manufactured synthetically, and right now the synthetic drugs are having a more demand in the market as well. So synthetic drugs poses more importance in the pharmaceutical market. Synthetic drugs have many advantages over the natural and semi-synthetic sources, student, and I have been mentioned few of them. The first is chemical purity. Synthetic drug, they are highly pure over the natural drugs. They are having a high quality which can be manually controlled. They have the improved safety profile, particularly in terms of less antigenicity, and even synthetic drugs are cost effective enough for the preparation methodology. So that's why synthetic sources nowadays it is being manufactured by the different pharmaceuticals. So this is something about the sources of drug. These are some of the references I have gone through, sources and nature of the drugs. Thank you so much.